welcome everyone to our March GSERA membership meeting. My name is Dennis Soares. I'm the president of the Northeastern Graduate Student Education Research Association, and I'm super excited to be here. Tonight we're featuring a little something different. We're going to be featuring a alumni from our Northeastern doctoral program, Dr. Mia Correia. And before I talk or speak about Mia, I would like the board members who are on to take a moment to introduce themselves and our advisor. So go ahead, Dr. Mark.
Mark Scheinbaum, pleased to meet here, Vice President, I guess for the rest of this year. And thank you to Dennis and everyone for making the Seattle residency a success. I hope everyone will arrange their schedule to be in the Boston residency as well.
I second that. Dr. Anderson, thank you, Mark, for that.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrew Anderson, Dr. Anderson, and I've been standing in as a GSERA advisor for this past quarter, and it's been an amazing experience. I love the opportunity for everyone to come together and to learn and to share ideas, and really excited to hear from Dr. Kerr tonight.
Awesome. So thank you to the board members who are here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So this is going to be recorded. I'm going to be sending this out to the membership so they can view at leisure. I can learn about Dr. Correia and what she's been doing post graduation. And Stacy, welcome. So Dr. Correia, actually a personal friend of mine, we met at the 2022 Boston residency, along with some of the members on here as well. And all of us have maintained contact through group chat, and we're super supportive of each other and each other's work. I asked Dr. Correia to speak tonight because the question comes up quite frequently: what happens post graduation? What do we do with our doctorate and our work and our action research after we graduate? Well, Dr. Correia is a good example of that, as she works for New Bedford Public Schools, and she's continuing to work alongside all of the world language educators within the New Bedford Public Schools to continue to push the research that she's been doing, or she did, throughout her doctoral journey. I'm going to allow her to talk about that, but without further ado, I'd like to introduce everyone formally to Dr. Mia Correia. Dr. Correia, thank you for being here this evening, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. And before I start talking about what I am doing post-doctoral, my doctoral journey, I wanted to talk a little bit about how Dennis was saying that we have a whole group chat going on. That was one of the most supportive things that I had during the program, was being able to reach out to multiple groups of different colleagues that were in different stages of their doctoral journey. And it was super helpful, not only with checking in about, are we on track, but also kind of just with many things going on personally. We kind of just motivated each other to keep going. And honestly, if it wasn't for those support groups, I don't know how I would have made it to the end sanely. I don't know if I was sane when I finished, but so it's super important to connect with people, to have those groups, those support groups. And just if you don't have that, reach out to people, start one. And it's just a great way to connect and keep going with your work. And I'm sure that other people will appreciate it as well. So a little bit about my dissertation and how it's helping me now post doctorate. So I focused on kind of incorporating more world languages into the school curriculum. So as a background, I was a Portuguese world language teacher for 7 years. And I worked at a 5 through 12 charter school where our high school had world languages, but our middle school did not. So one of my biggest motivations was to do my doctorate was actually to figure out how I can advocate and be able to have the problem solving skills and the research and everything else to be able to implement a world language program in our middle school. And so after years of requesting it and then finally doing some research and backing it up with data, during my final year of the doctoral program, they did approve for me to initiate a middle school world language program. But it was not a full program, which with languages, the more practice you get, the more proficiency you get. And so it was really important for me to figure out ways to be able to implement more world language. And so for my action step, I did an interdisciplinary school-wide project where world languages collaborated with ELA, with science, tech, art, history, and all of those pieces. The kids not only got more world language in their curriculum, but they also saw the relevance of it and how world languages connects to the world and to the other contents that they're learning. And I had talked about for years how I wanted to do interdisciplinary projects, but I never made that a priority until I had to when it was time for my action step. And I honestly, I wanted to continue doing it because it was a really great outcome. The kids did such a great job with their projects, and they really enjoyed bringing their projects and their materials from one class to the next to be able to carry that through. And so how I'm using that now, few months after getting my doctorate, I was offered the opportunity to be the curriculum data assessment manager for world languages at the public school district in our city. And so I'm at the district, I'm K to 12. I oversee the world language program in our district. And I work with teachers. I run the Seal of Biliteracy. We have an established middle school program, but again, it's not that everyday thing. The kids get it. I think it's about 30 days out of the whole 180-day school year. And so it's just kind of like trying to work through it, again, working through the research and the data to be able to advocate for more world language. We also have two elementary schools that have world languages, and that's principal's choice. If the principals decide that's a program they want, they implement it. One of the issues is finding teachers. So we've had a lot of our schools in the district have tried to hire language teachers to start a language program, and it's just we have a teacher shortage in every content, but languages especially, it's very hard to find and retain language teachers. And so my hope is that, with the students getting the Seal of Biliteracy, they'll pursue that pathway in language teaching, and we'll be able to produce more language teachers in the future and build stronger programs. I did use, as part of my dissertation, for dissemination, I had said that I was going to present at a conference, the work that I did. I have put in proposals for conferences, but I've also used that as a district-wide professional development. I literally took my dissertation presentation about my action step and made the appropriate changes to it to disseminate that to my district. And I had more other content teachers than I did world language teachers in the actual professional development, and they really enjoyed learning about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and how we can use that to do interdisciplinary projects on learning. I don't know if anyone has any questions so far.
I'm actually super impressed, Dr. Correia, so far, but I'm curious to see where your message takes us.
Yeah. So another thing that I'm also doing, I also was presented the opportunity after doctorate to adjunct at Boston University, and I teach global citizenship in education, which is a huge passion of mine. Again, I did not create the syllabus. It was already created for me when I started. I was the first to teach the class though. And the syllabus is all about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And it just interconnected so much with what I did my dissertation on and the interdisciplinary projects that I had my students working on as well. So I just feel like after Northeastern, the opportunities just kept flowing, and I was able to use not only that work, but the data and the research to be able to inform and improve these programs. So that's pretty much what I have to say. I don't know if anyone has questions. I feel like if questions come up, I'll have more to say on that.
Dr. Correia, I have a question. Many of us will be in your shoes at some point. Some of us who are on the call already are in your shoes. So you mentioned that once you completed the program, the opportunities started to develop. How did you, or what advice could you give students who are near the end or close to the end or will be at the end at some point? What advice would you give them to get themselves out there, to advertise their work, to showcase who they are as people and their availability to work within an institution, organization, school department, whatnot, to utilize their resource effectively with them?
Sure. So definitely networking and, you know, conferences, social media. I attend tons of conferences, always have over the years, still attending them, specifically language conferences. And then also I've been involved a lot with our Department of Education, DESE in Massachusetts. In 2019, they had sent out requests for volunteers to rewrite the world languages frameworks because we hadn't had new frameworks since 1999. And so I was part of that team to rewrite the frameworks. And so once I became more involved, I became more passionate about it. And a big vision from the Department of Education is the seal of biliteracy. And so I got heavily involved with that. I had the opportunity to take initiative at the charter school that I was working at, and that really helped me grow. And I know it's a smaller scope, but just today I was thinking this morning that I'm so glad that I was able to experience and learn those things in a smaller setting, because I went from being in a district or a school of 500 kids to 13,000 kids. And now I did the seal of biliteracy all by myself at charter, from the ordering of the test to the communication to everything else, to proctoring the tests. And now being in a larger district, everyone has their role. And it's interesting to see, and it's kind of nice to kind of hand off some of the responsibilities to others and to kind of see it play it out in a bigger setting. But going back to the whole networking thing, so DESE has, I don't know if this is the case for every content, but I know for languages, and I know for like at least ELA, they have literacy groups. And so getting involved in those DESE groups really helped me because, again, small school, I was one of 2 language teachers, and I really didn't have anyone to kind of like bounce ideas of languages, you know, back and forth with. And having that group of other language educators in the state, I really did learn a lot from my colleagues across the state. And then Twitter is a big social media that I use for networking. There's tons of language teachers on Twitter, and over the years, it's interesting to kind of meet these people that I've been communicating with over Twitter. I've been meeting them in person at conferences. And then as well as LinkedIn too. Those are 2 really good social medias for educators, is Twitter and LinkedIn. And so kind of just sharing out certain things that I'm doing, or certain things that are happening in the community, or stuff that the kids are doing. And people see that, and then they get interested and they get involved. So another thing is just like word of mouth as well, talking about it. Like I'll be at social events in the community and I'll start talking about the seal of biliteracy, and then your network grows. And Friday, I was out to dinner, and I ran into one of the guidance counselors at the high school, And she's super into the seal of biliteracy, and I love that. And she's always messaging me, asking me questions. And she's like, I'm sorry for all the questions. And I'm like, no, like, I love how invested she is, because, you know, the seal of biliteracy is a big deal. It's becoming a big deal. It took 13 years for it to be implemented in all 50 states, but every single state now offers the seal of biliteracy. And it's just that's how you get opportunity, is being able to network and meet new people.
Yeah, fantastic advice. No, fantastic advice. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
sorry to
and
cut you off.
actually, my opportunity with Boston University actually happened because they knew about the work that I did for my dissertation and how it connected so much with what was being taught in that class. And so, and the person that recommended me is actually somebody that I really looked up to, and I used a lot of her publications for my doctoral work in my dissertation. So it was just like so interesting to see it all play out. Like, I barely knew her, but we knew of each other's work. And because of that, because of my my action step, my doctoral work, she reached out to me to teach the course. And then I forgot what I was going to say. That's about it.
Dr. Anderson, do you have your hand up, or is it just me? Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Correia on her journey? Or I have another question, but I don't want to steal the. But Dr. Mark, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, from South Florida, where I remember a few years ago, someone got up at the school board and identified 63 languages that were spoken in the district. And apparently, under the state constitution, every child had a right to the highest quality of education available anywhere else. And I mean, there were like 34 people going for their 120 hours of TOEFL and ESOL stuff. But have any private sector companies or foundations found out about your work and said, wow, I mean, and offered grants and supports for your school or for the district? Because it would seem that, you know, somewhere there's a parent who works somewhere where they would want to like fund more and more of what you're doing.
So, speaking of grants, 1 month in this role that I'm currently in, I applied for a grant, through a very competitive grant through the Department of Education in Massachusetts. And they were giving a total of a little over $450,000 to language programs in the state. And there were, I think, about 60 something schools that had applied. And the most you could get was that one district could get was 150,000. There was 2 parts to this grant. So between the 2 parts, the most you could get was 150,000. And I applied for the grant. It was super stressful. It's actually even more stressful implementing the grant money, because there's so many restrictions around it and such a short time to use it. But I applied for this grant, and DESE is very familiar with the work that I do, and they've given me a smaller portion of this grant in the previous district that I was in, and they saw what I did with it, and they saw that I used it, the data from it, to inform the practice and improve the practice. So when I applied for it, I got $149,000. Now, if you look at the allocations from the state of how much each district that actually got the grant got, no one got anywhere near, like, not even near 100,000, never mind 150,000. So, again, it's that networking, and I volunteering too is great. Like, my dad always asked me, why are you going here? Why are you going there? Are you getting paid? You're wasting gas. And I tell him, like, this is, first of all, my passion. Second of all, I have seen what spending this time volunteering and getting involved in things has done. And I think that if DESE didn't know about the work that I've done, that I do, I don't think they would have given our school district $149,000. So I was very thankful for that, but I know that it's because they know that it's being put to good use. So we did get a grant. And I don't know
Congratulations.
if I'll be applying for any more because it's super stressful. I'm just kidding. It's worth it.
Oh, awesome. That's good stuff, Doctor, in all seriousness. I mean, it's a lot of money that's gonna get used for our kids, or your kids rather, in the district. So I'm super excited for you, and I'm sure
And
you'll be
we
writing more
actually,
grants.
we got to share with your district as well, Dennis. So
Yeah.
as part of the grant, they asked us to partner with other districts.
Mhm.
And so in the South Coast, we don't really have super strong language programs. Like I've noticed that in the DESE network meetings, there's not a lot of schools from the South Coast. I actually don't ever see any at all from the South Coast region. And so part of the grant was I said that I wanted to get Fall River Public Schools, Taunton Public Schools, the charter school that I used to work at, as well as a private Portuguese language academy that we have in New Bedford. So the 5 of our schools and districts are collaborating. And I put out there that I want to be able to bring them into the DESE language networks and strengthen their programs. And so showing that, you know, we wanted to collaborate together to improve our language programs in the South Coast, that was really also a motivator for them to approve and give us the grant money.
Doctor, I have a question for you. Oh, I have a question for you, Doctor.
Sure.
So it was about this time last year you were sitting for your defense,
Mhm.
which is amazing to hear everything that you've accomplished in this last calendar year. It's truly remarkable. How quickly did this roll for you to with the new position, with adjunct professor, with attending these workshops? How quickly did this unfold once you kind of walked across that stage last May?
Yeah, so I was kind of looking for a job, like even before defending, because March is usually the time that a lot of school districts put out positions for the following school year if they already know that they're creating the position, or if somebody knows that they're leaving at the end of the school year. So I was kind of already looking out for opportunities. And I said, you know what? I'm going to apply to things when I see them. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, that means it wasn't for me, and I'm okay. I was happy with my role. I was Portuguese teacher. I was doing a lot of admin things without the title. But I was okay with it because I loved it. I loved doing it, and I was learning from it. So over at the end of the school year, I had applied for this particular position, and it took a few months for me to hear back. And then initially, I actually didn't even, they had chosen somebody in the district, and I had this feeling that they were going to be calling me back. But I was okay with not getting it. I said, you know what? If I don't get it, it's because it wasn't meant for me, and that's okay. So I would have been fine in my role for another year, kind of just, you know, letting my brain just rest for a little bit. But then they called me a couple of weeks later and they offered me the position. So I started, the job technically starts the beginning of July. I started at the end of August. It's a brand new position. And the adjunct position also happened in July. She reached out to me. So yes, this happened post-doctoral work, but I was doing a lot of things simultaneously with my doctoral work. So I know that the Northeastern program doesn't offer an admin certification, probably because most people in the program are already admin. But I wasn't. And so what I did was I requested at my school to do my admin apprenticeship while I was doing my doctoral work. So everything that a lot of things that I did for my dissertation, a lot of the research, a lot of the communicating and whatever else, they counted that towards my apprenticeship wherever it fit appropriate with the indicators. And so I was working on a lot of things simultaneously with my doctoral work. So it kind of just like after that everything kind of just fell into place because I had all of those things going on at the same time.
It's great. Thank you.
So it was perfect because it happened a few months after I defended.
So if there was something you do differently, would there be anything?
Oh,
So I remember when you defended, because I sat through it, and then, so what do you do? What do you do the next day? What do you do? What do you do a week later? What do you do a month later? What do you do? I see Dr. Anderson smiling. I have a feeling I know what I would be doing. Well, I'm just curious, like, what do you do? We never really think about that. It's like you get married and you go through your honeymoon, and you get back, and then you spend your first night together in your real house, and it's like you wake up in the morning, it's like, now what do we do? Everybody's looking at each other, right? So what do you do?
okay, so those are two different questions, right? So you said, what would I do differently? What during?
Right, I went off there a little bit.
Okay, so what's your question?
Back to the first question, would there be
Okay.
something you've done differently?
I don't know. I really enjoyed the program. I don't know if there was something that I would do differently.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think the only thing that can come to mind is kind of trying to collect literature earlier on, because I felt like there was a lot of searching and stress over searching for the literature for the research while I was trying to write the dissertation. So it was very stressful, and Tithi knows my pain. So I guess that would be like the only thing that I would really have done differently.
That's good for people newer into the program, or students newer in the program to hear and planning. So what about the day after, the week after, or the month after? What was life like in the Dr. Correia household?
Well, definitely trying to catch up on things that I was behind on at work. That was one. And then just, taking the time to spend more time with my girls, because it's like you look back and it's like, wow, 3 years just went by. My youngest was like 4 when I started the program, and now she was 7. And I'm like, we spend so much time buried in our readings and in writing and our action step and research and everything, that, it's a lot of time goes into that and away from the kids. And so that was the number one thing that I was appreciative, was having the time back to spend with my girls.
Something you're all looking forward. We're all looking forward to having our life back to some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, have any other questions while we have Dr. Correia on, or?
I have another question for you, Dr.
Mhm.
So if you can think back to way back when you first entering the program, you did your initial problem of practice, to where you were at the very end of the program, how had that evolved? Was it the same problem of practice from the start, or did it take different shapes and forms with different points along the way? What was that process like? So that's the first part to that question. The second part is, and I know you alluded to a bit ago, but what are some strategies that you use to help you kind of navigate through this space? Because I know we had one of these sessions not too long ago, and I think we've had over 100 or so people watch that video. So although there might be just a handful of people on tonight, I know many people are gonna watch this video afterwards, which is pretty awesome. So how did it morph and change along the way? And then what are some key strategies you took along the way to kind of get you through to where you were?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question, Dr. Anderson. So when I first applied for the program, I had no idea what it would look like, what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted more languages. And I said, okay, I'm going to go get my doctorate and I'm going to change the world language requirement in this country. I'm going to make world languages required in the US. Not realizing that your doctoral work is actually a lot smaller of a scope. And I think a lot of my colleagues went in thinking that they were going to change the world as well. We went in with this like huge problem, and then they're like, well, actually, it's actually just this little thing. This is actually just the start. So I was like, okay, so I guess I'm not going to take over the US education system with languages. What can I do? So it did get smaller as we went along the way and more concentrated. There was one point in the middle where I thought my action step would be to implement the middle school world language program, but that also was kind of a bigger thing. It was part of the work. It was part of like my cycle 1, like interviews, where I gathered like, it was more for like gauging my stakeholders and checking in with administrators and middle school teachers to see like what's their value on being able to offer languages in the middle school, and how do they think we can do it? How do they think we can get over the barriers? What are the barriers, right? Maybe there are things that I didn't know about, that I didn't see. And so that at one point was kind of like the smaller thing. And then it was at the end more concentrated. It was just this little thing of, okay, we did that. I implemented the program, didn't get the full program that I wanted. What's my action step going to be now? So my action step was being able to do interdisciplinary projects on learning so that we can incorporate more world language and more relevance in world language in the curriculum. So that was the first part of your question. And then I think you asked strategies of.
Yeah, strategies to help you through the good times, the difficult times. What did you do to get to where you were?
So while I was writing my dissertation, it was very stressful to the point where I was getting like a lot of like upper back pain, and I was in the spa every week getting massages. So that's one thing, self-care, especially in that final stretch. But again, like I mentioned earlier, having support groups, super helpful. Like that was one of my number one things, was being able to, even if it was just like, oh, I feel like giving up, like this is so stressful. Like, I had many groups where we were like either different stages or in the same stage, and just being able to vent and have them be my motivation and vice versa. It was super helpful. And then, of course, like going through like, because in the course of your doctoral work in the 3 years, I feel like people can experience personal issues in their life. And if you're going through a hard time, it's just find your person to help lift you back up. I went through something personal. Dr. Crocker lifted me up, and she really helped me get back on track. And so just finding the right people to help you get through it, whether it's stress from the doctoral program or life, it's finding your people. And I also spent my entire weekends reading and writing, especially towards the end. So find a good coffee shop.
Yeah, super powerful message there. I think that's stuff that we tend to overlook. We always say it's almost like when we work out, we always mean to stretch at some point, but we always neglect it, right? Same thing with self-care, especially when we have these positions that really require more time than we actually have in our lives, right? Or after work, 25 hours in a 24-hour time frame, plus get decent amount of sleep. So the self-care is usually the easy, okay, that can hold off till tomorrow, then can hold off the next day, the next week, the next month, and before we know it, we're really feeling sickly or down or defeated. So I really appreciate you sharing that part, because that's something that we do tend to overlook.
Yeah, and there were days that I didn't sleep because there were days I remember getting like 2 hours of sleep because I was up so late reading and writing, and my administrators at work the next day would be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Got 2 hours of sleep," like, I was writing, so I definitely remember those days, but I had to make the time, especially in the end, to do those self-care things, and it did help.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to add or? Okay, so Dr. Correa, I appreciate you coming on this evening, on behalf of the entire GSERA organization and most importantly, board. Thank you, for your words of wisdom and words of advice. And, feel free to, pop in to one of our meetings. We do have a coffee talk on Saturday, this Saturday, actually, at 11 o'clock, Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where it's more of an informal conversation with the board. And next month in April, we will be welcoming Dr. Chris Unger as our guest speaker. And please look out for more information on that. But Dr. Correa, once again, thank you on behalf of the GSERA board. And at this time, I'm going to stop the recording.